Imagine an island that looks exactly like a massive concrete battleship floating dead in the ocean. No trees, no life. Just towering, crumbling concrete and the sound of crashing waves. Tonight, we take you to Hashima Island, the most terrifying ghost town on Earth.
Yeah, that image really, it immediately strips away any sort of romanticized notion of history you might have.
Right,
know?
it completely sets the scene.
Exactly. And when we look at our source material for this deep dive, we're really bypassing the traditional sterile historical timelines. We're looking directly into the psychological horror of a place that locals called Gunkanjima.
Which translates to Battleship Island.
Right, Battleship Island. And this structure, which is just decaying right now off the coast of Nagasaki, Japan, it reveals a genuinely terrifying reality. It's basically a monument to extreme industrial dehumanization.
Yeah, and I want to just set the tone right out of the gate for you listening, because this won't be a lighthearted overview or, a breezy travel guide to some abandoned ruin.
No, definitely not.
We are taking a shared journey into the dark, suffocating underbelly of a corporate giant's legacy. We are stepping into a very, very dark place together today.
We are. And to really understand the depth of that shadow, we first have to look at what passed for light in the eyes of the corporate world back then.
Right. Because it wasn't always this decaying ghost ship.
No, not at all. Hashima Island, at its peak, was actually considered this absolute marvel of modern industry. It was owned and completely operated by the Mitsubishi Corporation.
And when we say peak, I mean, we really need to put some hard numbers to this so you can actually visualize what we're talking about.
Yeah, the numbers are staggering.
Because it was a thriving coal mining facility, but the word thriving just does not capture the sheer suffocating density of this place.
Yeah.
We are talking about over 5,000 people crammed onto a rock.
It's a very small rock.
Yeah, it was only about 16 acres in size.
Right, which made it, at one point, the absolute most densely populated place on Earth. Yeah, I mean, it was more densely packed than any modern major metropolis.
Yeah.
More than Tokyo, more than Manhattan today.
That's insane to think about.
All of those people just squeezed onto this artificial outcropping of concrete, braving the really violent typhoons of the East China Sea.
Wait, hold on. Let me make sure I'm grasping the actual physical reality of this.
Sure.
If you drop over 5,000 people onto a 16-acre slab of concrete in the middle of the ocean,
Yeah.
how are they even surviving? I mean, there's no space for farms. There are no natural reservoirs. You can't just, wish an ecosystem into existence.
You can't. And that's actually the first piece of the underlying psychological horror here.
How so?
Well, Hashima was a completely artificial, fragile ecosystem.
Wow.
It had zero natural resources to sustain human life.
Yeah.
Nothing.
So no food, no water.
Exactly. Every single grain of rice, every piece of clothing, every drop of fresh drinking water, it all had to be shipped in from the mainland.
Wow.
They eventually had to lay subsea pipes just to pump fresh water to the island because the boats weren't enough.
That implies a terrifying level of control. I mean, if the corporation runs the boats and the pipes, they literally hold your life in their hands.
Precisely. You're completely at their mercy.
Yeah.
The island was designed as a human storage facility, basically, just to feed an industrial machine.
God, human storage facility is such a bleak way to put it.
It is, but it's accurate. Even the towering concrete seawalls that gave it the nickname Battleship Island, they weren't built to protect a thriving organic community.
What were they for then?
They were engineered specifically to deflect the brutal ocean waves so the industrial output wouldn't be interrupted by the typhoons. It was about protecting the machinery, not the people.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I'm trying to picture it. Think of the island like an inverted concrete iceberg.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Right. The cramped, brutalist city above water, the seawalls, the thousands of people, that was just the tip. Because the coal wasn't actually on the island, was it?
No, it wasn't. The coal was hundreds of meters beneath the ocean floor. The entire visible structure of Hashima, the towering apartment blocks, the schools, the concrete courtyards, that was just a massive capstone.
Just sitting on top of the real operation.
Exactly. It was just the mechanism to facilitate the true purpose, which was entirely submerged in darkness.
Which means every single day, thousands of people from this hyper-dense population were being funneled downward into the ice, so to speak.
What's fascinating here is the sheer scale of the engineering required and the corresponding psychological dread that goes with it.
Because they had to go so deep.
Right. To get to the coal, The shafts plunged up to a full kilometer beneath sea level.
A full kilometer?
Yeah. Descending into these undersea mines was akin to a literal descent into hell.
I can't even imagine.
You step into a rusted elevator cage, the doors slam shut, and you just drop 1,000 meters straight down into the earth.
And you are doing this with the knowledge that millions of tons of ocean water are sitting directly above your head.
Yeah, just pressing down on the rock above you. And the physical environment down there is difficult to even comprehend.
The sources had some terrifying details on that.
They really did. They detail how the temperatures at that depth regularly exceeded 85 degrees Fahrenheit.
Which is incredibly hot when you're doing hard labor.
And with humidity levels hovering around 95%.
So you can barely breathe.
Exactly. The air is thick, it's suffocating, and it's completely filled with highly combustible coal dust.
And the noise, too. The sources mentioned the constant terrifying groans of the rock.
Yes, the shifting of the earth.
You are essentially working inside a hollowed-out cavern beneath the sea, and you're just listening to the crushing weight of the ocean actively trying to break in.
It is the ultimate pressure cooker. And when we talk about who was actually subjected to this environment, well, the narrative takes an even darker turn.
Right, because this wasn't exactly a volunteer situation for everyone.
No, definitely not. Because the Mitsubishi Corporation wasn't just relying on eager, well-compensated employees to voluntarily drop a kilometer beneath the ocean.
Especially not when global conflict escalated, because during World War II, the demand for coal to fuel the war machine just skyrocketed.
It went through the roof.
And as Japanese men were conscripted into the military, the workforce on Hashima had to be replaced somehow.
And our sources are completely unequivocal about the brutal human cost that fueled this so-called marvel of engineering.
Who were they bringing in?
To meet the massive energy demands, the corporation utilized forced laborers. Primarily, these were conscripted civilians from Korea, as well as Chinese prisoners of war.
Here's where it gets really interesting, but in a horrific way. Because it wasn't just physical labor, was it?
No, it was so much more insidious than that.
It was the total erasure of humanity. They weren't seen as people with families or futures. The corporate bureaucracy didn't even view them as men.
They were viewed as raw materials, period.
Just numbers on a page.
Exactly. That is the core mechanism of industrial dehumanization. The highly organized modern corporate structure systematically documented this brutality as just another line item on a ledger.
Wow.
Yeah. In the eyes of the operators, a human being was literally no different than a piece of lumber or a lump of coal.
You are describing a system where human beings are treated exactly like disposable batteries for a capitalist machine.
That's a very accurate way to put it.
You just plug them into the mine, you drain them of every single ounce of energy, and when they're finally depleted, you just throw them away.
It's awful. But I actually want to push slightly past the battery metaphor.
Right.
Because the reality of the mechanism was even more insidious than that.
Okay, how so?
Think of Hashima Island not just as a machine, but as a deep-sea diving bell.
A diving bell?
Yes. When you are in a diving bell, your survival depends entirely on the air hose connected to the surface.
Right, you're totally reliant on the people above.
Exactly. On Hashima, the corporation controlled the air hose, they controlled the fresh water, they controlled the food shipments.
They held all the cards.
They did.
Yeah.
They controlled the only boats on and off the concrete slab.
Which actually answers a massive logistical question I had while I was reading the sources.
Oh, about the uprisings.
Yeah. If you have thousands of horribly mistreated forced laborers, and they vastly outnumber their captors on an isolated island, why didn't they just take it over? Why didn't they rebel?
Because rebellion means suffocation. It means starvation.
God, that's bleak.
It is. If you take the island, the corporation simply stops the water boats from coming. They turn off the air ventilation systems, pumping oxygen into the kilometer-deep shafts.
So you're dead either way.
The laborers were trapped in a panopticon of the corporation's making.
The environment itself was the warden.
Exactly.
And even when they finished an agonizing shift and rode that cage back up to the surface, they weren't returning to comfort. I mean, the architecture of the city above was just as oppressive as the mines below.
Oh, absolutely. They were forced to live in cramped, brutalist concrete apartment blocks.
Which were pretty new at the time, right?
They were. These are some of the first large-scale reinforced concrete buildings in Japan, and they were designed purely for maximum capacity.
Just packing as many bodies in as possible.
tiny concrete boxes stacked on top of one another. There were no trees, no respite from the salt and the constant wind.
You are just looking out a small window at the churning ocean, knowing you have to go back into the dark tomorrow.
And the toll this took is documented in chilling detail. Starvation was rampant.
And the exhaustion. I mean, exhaustion wasn't just a feeling of being tired. It was a terminal physical condition.
Yes, bodies were simply shutting down from severe caloric deficit and relentless physical trauma.
They were working themselves to death, literally.
And if starvation or sheer exhaustion didn't take them, the mechanics of the undersea environment often did. The sources explicitly detail the horrific reality of tunnel collapses.
I really want to spend a moment on the physics of a tunnel collapse there, because it is pure nightmare fuel.
It really is.
A tunnel collapse on land is horrific on its own. The dirt gives way, and you are buried. But a tunnel collapse, a kilometer deep beneath the ocean floor.
It's a completely different level of terror.
What actually happens?
It means the integrity of the rock above you has completely failed.
Yeah.
And you aren't just buried in earth.
The ocean comes in.
The crushing weight of the ocean above finally breaches the cavern. The water rushes in with unimaginably explosive force to fill the void.
It is the ultimate terrifying realization of that inverted iceberg analogy. The ocean just breaking through the bottom.
Yes. For the people trapped down there, their final moments were spent in absolute darkness, consumed by the very environment they were forced to exploit.
And the corporate ledgers, what did they do? They simply noted the loss of production, calculated the cost of clearing the shaft or digging a new one, and brought in more forced laborers to replace the ones who were lost.
The banality of that evil, the way it was neatly filed away in corporate paperwork, is just staggering.
It completely reframes how you look at the towering, brutalist city above the water.
It really does.
It wasn't a thriving community at all. It was a massive open-air prison ship anchored to a watery grave.
An engine that literally consumed human beings and spat out coal.
But like all engines built on finite resources, the machine had a mathematical lifespan.
It did. The entire elaborate infrastructure of Hashima Island was predicated on a single geological reality: the coal reserves beneath the sea.
And we know how that story ends. The coal doesn't last forever.
Right. But the descent of Hashima wasn't the slow, graceful winding down of operations.
It wasn't.
No, it was a hard, jarring stop.
Why would a corporation invest unimaginable capital into seawalls, kilometer-deep shafts, and massive concrete housing blocks only to just walk away from it?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it perfectly illustrates the utter ruthlessness of the industrial calculus we've been discussing.
Okay, how so?
You have to look at the global geopolitical landscape of the early 1970s. Japan was undergoing a massive, rapid energy transition.
Right. They were shifting from coal to petroleum.
Exactly. Oil was becoming the dominant, economically viable fuel source for the modern world.
So coal was obsolete.
The economic equation flipped. In January 1974, the Mitsubishi Corporation made a mathematical decision.
Just numbers on a spreadsheet again?
Exactly. The coal reserves were dwindling, and the cost of extracting them from a kilometer beneath the ocean was simply no longer profitable compared to just importing oil.
So because the residents were viewed merely as cogs in a larger economic machine, the moment the machine ceased to be profitable, the corporation pulled the plug.
Pulled it entirely. There was no phased closure.
No warning.
There was no economic redevelopment plan or gradual transition for the thousands of people living there. The order just came down.
Wow.
The mine was officially closed, and the corporation cut off the supply lines. Remember the diving bell metaphor?
Yeah, they controlled the air hose.
They announced they were detaching the air hose. The residents were forced to flee with a haste that is almost impossible to fathom.
Imagine the pure sociological chaos of that moment. You have over 5,000 people living in the most densely populated place on Earth, and suddenly they're told the boats are stopping.
The water is stopping.
You have to get out.
Now.
And I couldn't take everything with them. I mean, the logistics of moving thousands of people off a tiny rock in a matter of weeks meant families could only grab what they could physically carry onto the transport ferries.
Which created the time capsule we see today.
It did.
The visual of what was left behind is haunting, precisely because it is so incredibly mundane.
Yes.
It's not just crumbling industrial machinery. It is the intimate debris of interrupted human lives.
The sources describe these eerie, untouched remains sitting exactly where they were dropped in 1974.
Like what?
Heavy, boxy televisions from the 70s just left to rot in the salty air.
You walk through those crumbling apartment blocks today, and you see teacups still sitting on tables, kitchen utensils resting on counters.
It's surreal.
And the detail that always stops me cold.
Yeah.
Children's toys. Yeah, dolls and wooden blocks left abandoned on the concrete floors.
So, what does this all mean for you listening to this today? Imagine waking up in your apartment, being told by your employer that your entire world is being decommissioned tomorrow, and knowing you have to leave your child's toys on the floor forever.
It's terrifying.
Imagine the panic, the displacement, and the jarring realization that the concrete box you called home for your entire life was instantly deemed worthless the second the profit margins dipped.
It is a profound psychological shock. And the physical result of that overnight exodus is the terrifying silhouette sitting in the ocean today.
Completely empty.
The island was entirely abandoned to the elements. Without human intervention to maintain the seawalls and the concrete facades, nature immediately began reclaiming the space.
It has been braving violent typhoons for decades now.
Decades, yeah. The salt from the East China Sea is eating away at the exposed iron rebar.
The concrete is fracturing and tumbling into the water.
And from a distance, the whole place looks exactly like a dead dreadnought anchored in the sea, slowly deteriorating.
Which brings us to the real weight of this deep dive.
Right.
When people look at those crumbling facades and call Hashima a ghost town or a ghost ship, it is a natural human instinct to lean into the supernatural, you know?
Oh, absolutely. To imagine spectral entities wandering the dark hallways of those apartment blocks.
But the true horror of Hashima Island isn't paranormal. We don't need to invent supernatural spirits to feel the intense dread of that place.
No, we really don't.
The concrete itself is terrifying enough because of the history embedded in it.
The ghosts of Gunkanjima are not apparitions. They are the tragic echoes of real human beings.
Yeah.
They are the forgotten souls, the forced laborers, the POWs, the desperate miners who were used up, consumed by corporate greed, and discarded.
The island stands as a chilling physical monument to the absolute darkest side of extreme industrialization.
It really does.
It is a monument to a system that looked at a human life, weighed it against a ton of coal, and decided the coal was more valuable.
And that is the unsettling reality I want to leave you with today. Well, Hashima Island is a physical ruin from 1974. The concrete is falling into the sea. The kilometer-deep undersea tunnels are flooded and crushed. And the specific corporation involved has long since moved on.
But the underlying mechanism hasn't vanished.
It hasn't. The worldview that treats human beings as disposable metrics for maximum corporate efficiency didn't disappear when the last ferry left Battleship Island.
It just changed shape.
It simply evolved. It put on a suit, digitized its ledgers, and hid itself within the vast, opaque networks of modern global supply chains.
Wow.
The brutal math of extreme industrialization is still being calculated every single day. We just don't always see the concrete walls. So we really have to ask ourselves, where are the invisible Hashimas of our world today?
The concrete is crumbling into the sea, but the echoes of Hashima remain, a monument to the souls we left behind in the dark.